heart of stone.
I can't believe it. Okay, I'm Ash, and this is my brother Mike. And today we are going to be discussing the weekend news of Bloomberg possibly picking Hillary Clinton to be his running mate. So what was your initial reaction upon seeing that?
Mine was, every day is Christmas morning. It's a gift.
Well, I can understand his perspective. I mean, I think they thought they were golden when they picked her last time. Like, she's the next one. Like, she's just next. It's her time. I'm with her, right? So they pick her now. He thinks he's like, well, I pick a woman and I can get rid of all of these sexist comments, the rape stuff, and anything anybody's accused me of with regard to women. And I think people just generally hate most about both of them.
They are both, right now, rich New York elites. And that was a problem last time, but as we've learned, they don't learn any lessons. So they're just gonna do it again.
Yeah, if your platform essentially is beat Trump. Trump is awful. I have no values of my own except giving away free stuff, whereas fortunately I think still the majority of Americans realize it's not free. We have to pay for it. That's all they have. So you made an interesting observation about the Democratic Party in, kind of comparison to the Labor Party, and, take it away with that.
I understand that they did a post-mortem poll to find out why they did so badly, especially since they're trying to finally replace Jeremy Corbyn. So they polled people and asked them, why didn't you vote for Labor? Why did you leave the Labor Party? And they said, the party's ideas are pie in the sky. They've moved too far left. They no longer represent people like me. They have no coherent priorities. They're elitists who talk down to everyone and treat people like me, like they were stupid. Does that sound familiar? I think it does.
When you think about that architect of Obamacare guy, and something that Bloomberg himself has said about Midwesterners just not understanding trans people, that basically we're not smart enough to understand the plight of trans people. They still think like that we're just too dumb to get it, and there's nothing more elitist than, you don't know what's good for you, but I do. And it reminds me of what Biden said, and I believe the quote was in the 70s, not the 60s, not more recently than that, but that he knew what was best for the colored man, is what they had him quoted as saying. And now something else comes out where he says that illiteracy is high among black people because their parents can't teach them to read. And it's just, he hasn't changed at all. And then Bloomberg's got stop and frisk and now trying to cozy up to the Black Caucus members. And actually, I think that's going to work for him to an extent. But I don't think people are going to be affected by that. I don't think people like him. I don't think black people are going to go out and vote for him because some black mayor somewhere tells him to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is do as I say, not as I do. They act like a ruling class, and they don't see the problem with it. I don't know if they're capable of learning a lesson, because it really means that they're going to be gone.
And, to your point, which we talked about it last weekend as well, but this whole mentality that you're going to listen to the loudest voices, no matter how few they are, it's really what's killing them, I think, because they seem to be controlled by the left-leaning media. Like, whomever the flavor of the day is among journalists is who they want to nominate. They don't listen to actual constituents anymore, and that's really why they want to do away with the Electoral College. They want elites on the coast to control the entire country, and they're going to learn, if they're capable, this election, that you can play that all you want, but when the whole country, even if it's, handfuls of farmers here and there and us, common folk, in our purple states or whatever, when we say no to that, they can't win. It's going to be red everywhere, I think, this time. I think he's going to win New Hampshire handily, and I think he's going to win Minnesota.
Yeah, it won't be 49 states again, but it'll be more than last time. It'll be a rout. Whether they pick Bernie, which I don't think they're going to do.
Me neither.
Or they go with Bloomberg, which seems more and more likely. With Hillary Clinton's machine on top of his money, they're going to roll over everybody. And
it's going to piss people off, though.
It will. The thing is that if they had seen this coming 2 years ago, they could have resigned themselves to the fact if your party if you want to have a party that has any chance of even being anywhere near the center, to have, they could run as a labor party, try to get union members, try to get the working class. That's not what they've been doing. I don't really understand what they've been doing other than pandering to the far left. But if they did that, it means losing the far left. And they don't want to admit that they can.
Right.
The thing is, if they just never pandered to the far left, I think that the far left could hold their nose. But now they can't.
Well, and that's the thing, too. If you look at people who are members of unions, let's just, because we're from Michigan, take auto workers, for example. Are you going to look at Trumpy Trump, who you may have just hated as a person, generally hated his politics, but look at results of jobs coming back to Michigan, and then vote for one of these people who's like, yeah, we used to be really pro-union and everything, but now we think, illegal immigrants are more important than you guys are. Because that's really what they say now. It's all about abandoning the people who traditionally voted for your party in favor of who you think are going to be your future voters. And not only was it a stupid gamble, but I don't think it's going to work out for them at all.
No.
It's really, to me, it's just a strategy that completely failed. And I think if you talk to people on the street in most parts of the country, if they ask you, let's not even go 100% like a U.S. veteran who fought for the country, but if any homeless person in America needs help and an illegal immigrant needs help, who do you help first? They're going to say the American homeless person. And it doesn't have to do anything necessarily with race. So let's say they said a black guy who's homeless, who's an American, and somebody who came, from Honduras. Who do you help first? What are they going to say?
The American.
So it's just BS. They've built their entire platform on hate, and hating Trump and hating conservatives, hating your neighbors, and they throw out all of these trite lines that are just throwaway lines like love Trump's hate, and it just highlights their own hypocrisy.
They have been able to run for some time on the idea that though they are divisive, they are the compassionate party, and most of that has been a problem with conservative messaging, because conservatives get defensive rather than fighting back the right way on that.
Well, what's interesting to me is even if you have like a libertarian, not a conservative who, drops some line about how we can save social programs like Social Security. But you talk to a libertarian and they tell you that they generally do not care about homeless people. I just don't care. It's not my responsibility. Take that person and that's where they stop talking. And the thing that they should try to get across is that it doesn't matter if you don't care, because your policies are still going to be more helpful to someone in need than the policies of the left, because it's all about this lie of their intentions and never about results. And if you look at capitalism, it has brought millions out of poverty. And if you look at socialism, it has dragged people into poverty who weren't poor to start, and made the people who were already poor, poorer. So what the hell are they even doing? It's about control. It's not about helping people. The people who are, pulling the strings know that. The people who are falling for it, kind of like, halfway up the ladder, I don't think they necessarily know that. Their goal, if, they're in this long term, like they want to be career politicians, may be to have that power for themselves. But when I look at my friends, who I'm just going to say, my friends who went to college, most of them are far left. I don't think that they want to hurt people.
No.
I don't think that they're evil. I think that they fell for something that sounds good on the surface, that it's helpful to people, that it's more fair, and neither of those things is true. Because what is more fair than allowing someone to keep what they've worked for and getting exactly what you work for?
I think the problem is the start from a bad foundation. That, especially if you believe one line, the system is rigged. If you believe it's all rigged, you can't base fairness on outcomes from that. So you have to bring the whole thing down. But if the system's not rigged, then you're all wrong. And the Democrats don't really have an alternative to Bernie's line, and he has said, word for word, the system is rigged. And they don't have an ideological centrist to counter that, if there's such a thing.
Well, and if we just take a second and look at Bernie Sanders, my friends, most of them support the guy. They think that he's always been consistent, which I will give them. But when you look at old videos of him, which he's never disputed anything he said in the past about thinking breadlines are a good thing, or praising Cuba. Cuba and Venezuela, both countries he looked at as this model of perfection. And this past week, they have new stories about shooting protesters. It looked like a female protester who was begging for aid and they killed her. Can't you look at that and see that that is the result of socialism? That if that's his perfect model and he would want to make us like that, how much crazier it could get in a country where we have that much more to start, where the resources for the military would be off the charts, and if the government had that much control, it would be just a disaster. What happened to hippies who hated the government? I want to know, how do you go from being Neil Young and singing about Kent State, and now you want government to have that much power? How does it happen?
I think it's the difference between Locke and Rousseau. Rousseau says, if your institutions are right, we can remake humanity. Locke says, humanity doesn't change. Humanity's flawed, and we have to limit the amount of power anyone has, no matter what they believe, and this is why.
And that's the thing. As I'm looking at people, I'm looking at my friends, I don't think they're fundamentally bad people. I think we disagree on almost everything in some cases, apart from, film and music and things we get along on, reasons why we can laugh together. We don't agree on politics at all. But I don't think they're all one thing. And I'm sure they look at me and they don't think I'm all one thing. But if you can see that people are fundamentally flawed, and I can see that people are fundamentally flawed, why do we want people, a small amount of people, and their hands have all the power? Everything that they say about money for the rich, concentrated in the hands of the few, we should apply with power. Can we all agree that this tiny elite should not have power over the rest of us? And if we can, then we can agree with everything that Reagan said back in '64 in his time for choosing speech. And we should just plan our lives ourselves. Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about more awesome stuff next week. Have a good one.